We passed Barn Hill, the house where, in 1948, George Orwell wrote his defining book, 1984. He nearly lost his life in the Gulf of Corryvreckan, the narrow passage with the notorious reputation that divides the northern tip of Jura from the next island of Skaba. It was calm when we passed through, but even under these conditions, this treacherous body of water is prone to unpredictable upwellings. At its worst, the bizarre bottom contours produce whirlpools and standing waves as high as 20 feet, which can overwhelm the stoutest vessel. The roar from the resulting maelstrom can be heard 12 miles away. The underwater pinnacle of rock responsible for the turbulence shows up clearly on the depth finder. The cottage in which my great-grandfather lived is now a traveller's hut, known locally as a bothy. I had been hoping we could anchor in Glengarrisdale Bay, but the rocky bottom made this impossible. Chris held the boat offshore while I was able to land from the tender and visit the bothy. We took advantage of the amazing weather to visit the other islands and sea stacks in the archipelago. At 1,400 feet, the cliffs are the highest in the British Isles. We passed the island of Soay, where the islanders kept sheep, and crossed the 4 miles from there to the precipitous crags of Borrowray and the adjacent sea stacks of Stack Lee and Stack An Armin, which collectively provide the world's largest breeding colony of gannets. The islanders' whole way of life depended on the millions of birds that breed here. Almost nothing in the way of sustenance was taken directly from the sea itself, and the population lived entirely off birds and their eggs, the collection of which involved perilous climbs up and down the precipitous cliffs. The island group represented the entire world for its inhabitants for thousands of years, and it was only when they started to interact with outsiders in the 19th century that their way of life began to unravel. We passed the Witch's Finger. Our plotter showed that the TTG, time to go, was 1.4 days. At the time this picture was taken, we did not know that we were in for some unpleasant weather, which would reduce our speed over the ground and extend the transit time to just under 48 hours. A headwind in excess of 30 knots conspired with an opposing current to produce vertical waves and deep troughs into which the boat dropped with a bone-jarring crash for hour after endless hour. Now at 64 degrees north on Midsummer's Day, the early dawn revealed dramatic views of the dangerous south coast of Iceland. Hidden in the clouds was the volcano that had caused so much disruption. After 48 hours underway, it was with great relief that we entered the dramatic entrance to Heimaey Harbour, where seabirds nested in every crevice on the towering cliffs. Our immediate destination was the unsurveyed and uncharted fjord of Longafjordur. A major waterfall at the head of the fjord filled the air with a soothing lullaby. As soon as the anchor was down, we launched the tender to see a diminutive venture dwarfed by the grandeur of her surroundings. That evening we celebrated with an excellent dinner of roast pork served with wine. As evening approached, the skies began to clear, and a lingering sunset, here filmed at midnight, settled its silent wings over the fjord. The following morning dawned clear and absolutely calm. Large numbers of beautiful jellyfish trailed their delicate tentacles through the pellucid water. We retrieved the anchor using the built-in nozzle to wash the chain. My solo excursion in the tender along the full length of the fjord to film Venture in her natural environment was a thrilling ride of sheer exhilaration, never to be forgotten. The harbour on tiny Grimsey Island is built like a fortress against the fury of the ocean. Grimsey is famous for its amazing bird life. We were at last able to get close to the puffins and visit the Arctic Circle marker before going to Húsavík, back on mainland Iceland. From here we drove to Dettifoss, billed as the most powerful waterfall in Europe. Its waters were grey with sediment from the glacier which fed it. Back at sea we rounded the northeast tip of Iceland and once again crossed the Arctic Circle, this time slightly north of our previous position. We celebrated the occasion by adding champagne to our orange juice. The season was advancing, and we had to be back in Southampton by the end of August, in time for the International Boat Show. We topped up our fuel from a tanker truck. We headed out into the North Atlantic for the 500-mile crossing direct to Scotland. Time to go is shown on the plotter as 2.2 days. Total time taken for the trip to and from Southampton was 134 days, during which we had covered 4,677 nautical miles.